All right. I'm back. I'm back, hopefully, for good. I reset my router. I checked the internet speed. If I keep having issues, then who knows why that's happening, but I shouldn't have any more issues. Hi, Nina. So I'm gonna wait a second for people to come into this new stream. Henry said on Discord right now there is not only one, but two Monterey Bay jellyfish live streams going on. And Shiaga said, no Wi-Fi, watch the jellies instead. So I'll just assume that that's why I'm having internet problems right now. We're all supposed to watch the jellyfish swim around. Hi, Henry. Yeah, my internet was behaving this week, at least for live streams. And it just generally, the past couple weeks, it hasn't been as bad. So I'm like, come on, we could do this. You can help me out here, internet. Hi, Sua. Ooh, moon jellies, the ones from my break screen. Yeah, those are really pretty. So what was I saying? I'll just go through like the spiel again. We're finishing volume 3 today. We're reading chapters 85 through 88, plus a meat bun mini theater. Nina had helped me do the page math, and I remember I was looking at the little spreadsheet, and it was showing the chapter numbers, and then at the end of the volume it said extra, and I was like, hello, there's an extra? So I'm super excited about that. And, well, if you haven't done this already for some reason, please have a look at the trigger warnings linked in the description, and please give the stream a like. This new stream now. Help my internet not be mean to me again. Oh, Psychine is in the Discord trying to send a meme, but now their internet is being fucky. No one's internet can just be nice. Well, I am gonna go ahead and get started. In the interest of time. And I swear if I see my screen lag the tiniest little bit, I'm so getting ready to just, like, throw the router that I have. Oh no, there was actual lag, Nina. No, there was lag for just 1 second. I looked up and I saw it, but I was like, no, please. Please, it's not happening. Okay. I guess we're gonna proceed and hope that everything is okay. I don't really know what's going on, though. It's not like we're having weird weather today or anything like that. So, just shout at me if there is a problem. Yeah. We're on page 375 for chapter 85, which is called We Came Across Another Homicide. Before he got a hold of himself, he nearly punched through the switch for the room's main light as rage surged through his head. As the room was flooded with brightness, Yu rushed forward with bloodshot eyes and yanked aside the twisting blankets. Xie Ching Chung, you. Motherfucker, the hell's wrong with you? Ah, oh my god, what's going on? The shrieks of a man and a woman rang out from the bed. In his rage-addled state, Yu hadn't realized until that moment that the two lovers going at it on the bed weren't Xie Qingcheng and Chen Man at all, but rather two minor supporting cast members. By this point, the actor and actress had also realized who he was, and their anger instantly turned into horrified shock. Yu stared at the couple, and the couple stared back. All three of them were speechless. They were both playing minor roles, but this kind of major production would hardly recruit D-listers. The man and woman were both veteran actors with names Yu recognized, and he knew that both of them were married to other people. The man's wife had even gotten pregnant recently. She'd trended on Weibo when she shared some sweet pregnancy photos. I hope he didn't just go into the wrong room. But right now, they were both in bed with someone other than their spouse. These two Laosha were clearly having an affair out here. How did you get in here? Yu stilled for a moment before saying indifferently, I took the wrong room card. Isn't this 2209? It's 2209, the actress said in a shaky voice. I just switched rooms. The heat wasn't working in my room, so... Wasn't there someone else staying in this room, though? Yu didn't care whether they were having an affair. He wasn't the least bit interested in such things, as extramarital affairs were completely unremarkable in the entertainment industry. So his face was completely devoid of surprise as he asked them directly, Where is he? The actress cautiously drew the blanket securely over herself, then said in a trembling voice, We don't know either. When I asked the front desk to change my room, the receptionist just gave me the card to this one. The previous guest must have checked out. Oh, he left. Ashen-faced, Yu turned around and left. Ah, the actress cried out plaintively to his retreating back. Laosha, please don't tell anyone about this. Yu went to the front desk to ask which room the guest in 2209 had switched to. Probably because his expression was very grave, the receptionist raised her head somewhat nervously after she looked it up. He checked out. He checked? Yu choked on his words. Checked out? He had looked at the remaining production schedule. Barring unusual circumstances, Xie Qingcheng was supposed to continue supervising the production for quite a while. You know, Henry, that is a good question. Can someone remind me why Yu had the key card to Xie Qingcheng's hotel room in the first place? Is this legal? I was thinking that because it said just offhandedly that he asked, somebody, I forget if it was Hu Yi or if it was the director, but he asked somebody for the key card to that room, and they were just like, yeah, cool, here you go. And I was like, you'd think that they would just be like, no, that's somebody else's room. Like, just knock on his door and go there yourself. But apparently it was totally fine and good to do that. But if he'd checked out, instead of just switching rooms, where was he staying? Since he couldn't find him in person, Yu gave Xie Qingcheng a call. Hello, Xie Qingcheng. Yu had expected Xie Qingcheng to hang up on him, and was surprised when he actually answered. He was so anxious, his whole body leaned forward slightly as he gripped his phone in his hand. Where are you? Xie Qingcheng was silent for a while before he said, Yu. Yes. Surely you're not so fucking narcissistic that you thought I'd really just stay in my room waiting for you to come back and fuck me. The fucking actually wasn't all that important. He just wanted to speak to Xie Qingcheng alone. Wow. That's a plot development. Oh, Nina, you think he nicked it during the bathtub cleaning? Oh, okay. That would make sense. I missed that. Did you get your head caught in a door or what? Once Xie Qingcheng was done cursing him out and letting off some steam, he hung up the phone, leaving Yu rooted to the spot with an expression of displeasure on his face. You asked for it, Yu thought. He walked over to the resting area in the lobby, where he sat down and immediately opened the hacking software installed on his phone. Tracing the signal that had just been transmitted, Yu took less than a minute to determine Xie Qingcheng's current location. Xie Qingcheng was at a clay pot congee restaurant on South Street. Yu didn't want anyone to follow him, so he didn't call the nanny van. Instead, He borrowed an ordinary car, a brand he didn't even recognize, from one of the production assistants, and drove it straight to the kanji shop. It was only once he arrived that he discovered Xie Qingcheng wasn't alone. He was accompanied by an assistant writer and a production manager. The three of them had just finished eating their late-night snack, and now they were standing outside the entrance waiting for a taxi. Xie Qingcheng must have walked away to take his call earlier. He definitely wouldn't have wanted anyone to overhear such a private conversation. "Ah, young Master He Laoban." He Yu gave the two girls quite a shock when he rolled down his window. Even Xie Qingcheng was slightly surprised, but he quickly realized that He Yu must have used illicit methods to find him, and his expression turned grim. "Did He Laoban come to have some kanji?" the production manager asked. He Yu paused, then smiled. "I was just passing by. It's so late. Where are you guys headed?" "We were just discussing tomorrow's shoot. It's that scene at the Research Institute tomorrow. But the director thinks there are still some issues with the props, so we were just about to take Professor Xie to the set to take a look." "Well then, get in." He Yu unlocked the car doors with one hand, resting the other on the steering wheel as he stared unblinkingly at Xie Qingcheng. "I'm just out for a drive. I'll take you there." Who wouldn't want to ride in a handsome guy's car? The two girls clambered happily into the back seat. Naturally, they left the passenger seat open, as they couldn't allow a man as stoic as Xie Qingcheng to squeeze in with them in the back. Not that they wouldn't have enjoyed it, but it would have been rather unbecoming. Xie Qingcheng looked back at He Yu for several seconds as he stood there in the wind and snow. But in the end, he had no choice but to grimly take a long-legged step into the car. He was so irritated that he forgot to put on his seatbelt after getting in, simply turning his head to look out the window with a dour expression. It wasn't until He Yu's youthful scent pressed near that Xie Qingcheng suddenly snapped out of it. "What are you doing?" he said harshly. He Yu leaned his entire body in until he was very close to him. The girls in the back couldn't see clearly from this angle as he lowered his lashes, indulged the desire in his eyes, and inhaled Xie Qingcheng's scent. Just like, remember the days that you didn't like his scent? "I borrowed this car, so it'd be annoying if this got on camera and the owner's points were deducted. I hope you understand, Professor Xie." As he spoke, he reached over to pull down the seatbelt and fasten it with a click. "I'm buckling your seatbelt for you." The writer and production manager thought nothing of it as they watched cheerfully from the back. Xie Qingcheng didn't feel like wasting words with He Yu. Even his anger was more than he wanted to offer. He only said coldly, "You have a mouth, and I have hands. Please remind me instead of doing it for me." He Yu smiled. "Okay. Next time I definitely will." The car whirred to life and sped off in the direction of the next day's set. The studio where it was located wasn't all that far away, but it was surrounded by embankments. Aside from a handful of staff members, it was completely deserted. He Yu's cousin was originally supposed to supervise this scene, but a position in a hospital's emergency department wasn't as predictable as one in a university's graduate school. When his cousin received a sudden summons to return to the hospital, the production had no choice but to let him go. By the time they entered the studio, the workers had nearly finished assembling the next day's set according to the plans, but there were still a number of details that needed to be ironed out. Thus, the production manager and writer began making adjustments according to the discussion they'd had with Xie Qingcheng in the kanji shop. After explaining himself succinctly to the prop master, Xie Qingcheng watched calmly from the sidelines with He Yu. The entire set had been designed to resemble a high-tech underground laboratory, with oxygen chambers, petri dishes, operating tables, surgical lights. There were all kinds of highly realistic props. Some of it was even real equipment that the production had specially borrowed from collaborating hospitals. Xie Qingcheng stood in their midst, looking at the massive specimen tanks looming in the corner. There were several of them crowded together, each 2 to 3 meters tall and containing a dummy made by the props department, immersed in a chemical solution. The dummies were crafted to appear very lifelike, their hair floating like seaweed. It was one of these props that had been mistaken for an actual dead person in the glass cabinet back at the hotel. Now that they had been submerged in liquid, they seemed even creepier. Watch one of the props be an actual dead body. Xie Qingcheng's gaze wavered in uncertainty for an instant, but he quickly pulled his thoughts back under control. Where did Xie Qingcheng, if he didn't tell He Yu, he would just find out on his own. So there was no point in hiding the truth from him. He told him the name of the hotel with an air of cool indifference. Can everyone see me? Did we just get lag again? Oh, please. No. Oh, I beg. Alright, I'm gonna stop for 1 second. And see if I can somehow fix this. We're still lagging? Okay. I don't really know what to do because if I switch it to my hotspot, it's probably just going to hang up again and I'm going to have to start another stream, which is fine if I have to do that, but I'm hoping there's something else that I can do here to make things a little bit better. Give me 1 second. Right. Okay. I just changed the output to be lower. Henry, somehow it stops lagging every time you complain about it just long enough for us to hear the no. I don't know if lowering my output might help if it's just struggling with that currently. It's looking okay right now. And it's telling me I have an excellent connection, which it always does that, and it drives me nuts. Because I'm like, you're supposed to tell me if there's a problem. But okay. Did you guys... I'm just going to read the past few sentences to make sure you didn't miss anything. Where'd you move to? He Yu asked softly as he stepped up beside him. Xie Qingcheng knew that if he didn't tell He Yu, he would just find out on his own. So there was no point in hiding the truth from him. He told him the name of the hotel with an air of cool indifference. Why do you move over there? Because you don't have the privilege of obtaining the keycard to any room you want at other hotels. He'd hit the nail on the head. That's what I thought. I thought he had just asked for it. But it's crazy because no matter how Nepo baby you are, no one should just be like, yeah, you can have the keycard to any room you want. He'd hit the nail on the head. It must be expensive living somewhere else, and you're so stingy. He Yu likewise poked at Xie Qingcheng's sore spot. Xie Qingcheng lit a cigarette. When I checked out, the production reimbursed me. He had no reply to that. This stupid production was really dumb as fuck. Absolutely no foresight to speak of. Young Master He, the capitalist, wanted to fuck this man, yet they went ahead and reimbursed his room fees so he could live somewhere else. Cough, 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 cough. The hallway in the studio was so narrow that smoking indoors was bound to affect other people. Sure enough, the production manager couldn't handle it and started coughing. Xie Qingcheng immediately stubbed out his cigarette. Seeing that his unfulfilled craving was bothering him, He Yu leaned back against the wall for a while, then said, "Let's take a walk outside." When he saw the look in Xie Qingcheng's eyes, he added, "Just out front by the door, where there are people. You don't need to be so afraid of me. When have I ever been afraid of you? You're giving yourself too much credit. With that, Xie Qingcheng walked toward the exit. He Yu chased after him. If you're not afraid of me, then why did you switch hotels? You're a pain in the ass. He had no response. It was freezing outside, with snow drifting down through the crisp open air. He Yu stood beside Xie Qingcheng the whole time he spent silently smoking a cigarette, leaning against the outside of the studio. There were so many things he wanted to ask Xie Qingcheng, but he knew he wouldn't receive a single answer. There were also many things he wanted to do with Xie Qingcheng, but he didn't know why he had such desires. The snow came down faster and faster as the night grew darker. The staff members left one after another as they completed their duties. Xie Qingcheng hadn't smoked his fill yet, and didn't feel like going back inside, so he took out his phone, intending to message the production manager to ask when they'd be finished, only to glance down and see 0 bars. He asked a nearby staff member about it, one Xie Qingcheng hadn't seen before, a man in a raincoat who was loading some stuff into a car. That's not suspicious at all. A man he hasn't seen before. It's always like that out here, the man said. He was packing a pile of props with no discernible purpose into the trunk. There was a large, heavy prop chest among them. Even though he'd gotten a platform stepladder, he still seemed to be struggling somewhat, so Xie Qingcheng lent him a hand. Thank you, said the staff member. No problem, Xie Qingcheng replied. You're looking for self-service, right? The man clapped the dust off his hands. The coverage here is terrible. It comes and goes. You'll need to drive about half a kilometer out before the signal stabilizes. Are you leaving? Want me to give you guys a ride? No need, thanks. We have a car. The staff member stared at Xie Qingcheng some more, tugged down the hood of his raincoat, and smiled. Without saying anything more, he gathered his things and left. This was the last large vehicle, which meant that there were very few people left inside the building now. Xie Qingcheng stood waiting outside for the writer and production manager to come out, but by the time he'd finished his third cigarette, the girls were still inside. He didn't know what sort of problem they could have run into that would require such a long discussion. Xie Qingcheng originally wanted to go back inside, but when he saw that there was only one cigarette left in his pack, he couldn't help wanting to just polish it off. Coughing slightly, he lit his Zippo and was just about to bring it to the cigarette when He Yu said, "Stop smoking. Let me have the last one." The fact that he basically started smoking because of this man. He spoke conversationally, as though inviting discussion, but he really had no such intentions. He snatched the cigarette directly from between Xie Qingcheng's soft lips and took the lighter from his hand. Then he stepped further away, where the second-hand smoke couldn't reach Xie Qingcheng, and lit the cigarette. The orange flame flickered between He Yu's fingers. Xie Qingcheng furrowed his pitch-black brows as he gazed at him. He Yu's temperament was impossible to grasp. One moment he'd be smiling so gently as he spoke to you. The next he'd reveal a ferocious, predatory face. It wasn't necessarily a good thing when he smiled, nor was it necessarily hopeless when he lost his temper. In short, it was very difficult to get a glimpse into his heart. Like right now, Xie Qingcheng had no idea what kind of madness had gotten into He Yu's head that would make him suddenly start smoking. And it was his very last cigarette to boot. He Yu tilted his head back to exhale a cloud of gray mist, gazing up at the boundless wind-blown snow. He looked very beautiful when he smoked, graceful and sensuous, without any of the greasy, unsavory vibes that men in the entertainment industry often gave off. But he wasn't like Xie Qingcheng either. When Xie Qingcheng smoked, he exuded an overwhelming aura of masculinity and looked incredibly handsome, like a rich liqueur. He Yu was more like the mellow-hued silhouettes seen in Wong Kar-wai's films. I love that imagery. I like how there's not a lot of it, but there's a little bit of like film stuff, film references in this series, which I mean makes sense because it involves filming movies, but still I'm just like, ooh, that's fun. Why did it lag at handsome? Well, I hope you can... Xie Qingcheng is messing with the Wi-Fi. Apparently, that's... Yeah, he just wants us all to watch his jellyfish streams today. He's like, why are you reading about me and this terrible man, He Yu? I love that when he's not being crazy or a hacker, He Yu is also a film nerd. Exactly. It's very cute. The last cigarette was finished. He Yu walked back over the thin layer of snow on the ground. When he reached Xie Qingcheng, his eyelashes were dusted with frost. They're still not done? No. Let's go in and take a look. There was practically no one left inside. Most of the lights in the studio had gone out, so it was very dark, with the only illumination coming from some weak, continuous floodlights way up on the ceiling. He Yu and Xie Qingcheng walked further into the building, gravel crunching beneath their feet. Suddenly, thud. Xie Qingcheng, am I lagging again? No, please don't do that. Hello? Shoot. Okay, to me, Psychine? Never mind. Okay. Okay. Hold on. Intermission again, I guess. We'll see if it can stay this time while I go reset the router. And you're on hotspot right now. If I could do the whole stream on hotspot, I would, but I don't think it's going to let me do that. So I'll be right back. me or hear me. Me or hear me. Anyone at all. I reduced my frame rate even more, so if the video looks bad, but as long as it's not, like, lagging or having issues, as long as you can hear me, that's really what I need to know. It still looks to me like it's lagging when it's stuttery, though. Okay. When the video stutters, does the audio also stutter? Okay, you can hear me perfectly. I think I'm just gonna have to go with that, then. If the video looks bad, but as long as you can hear me. So let's go back. Were we at the thud? He Yu and Xie Qingcheng walked further into the building, gravel crunching beneath their feet. Suddenly, thud. Xie Qingcheng turned around at once. Why did the main door close? Maybe the wind is blowing too hard. He Yu looked back too, frowning slightly. He thought for a bit. Let's find them and leave. They followed the long walkway into the depths of the studio, where several rooms had been transformed into labs. The two girls had been talking to the set designer in the largest of these rooms, but when Xie Qingcheng and He Yu checked it, they discovered that no one was there. The room was empty. It was very quiet. He Yu called the girls' names, but there was no response. However, they could indistinctly hear a continuous susurration coming from one of the rooms in the distance. Did they leave just now? Asked Xie Qingcheng. Definitely not, said He Yu. An ominous feeling flooded out from the bottoms of their hearts. Xie Qingcheng took out his phone and looked at the screen. Seeing that his signal was still at 0 bars, the ominous feeling intensified. Go check the other rooms, he told He Yu. He Yu didn't move. Xie Qingcheng turned around to see that he was staring fixedly at the giant specimen tanks in this laboratory. In accordance with the script's specifications, each of them held a silicone rubber dummy immersed in liquid. After a beat of silence, the muddy light at the top of the studio flickered. At nearly the exact same moment, Xie Qingcheng heard He Yu's quiet voice. Xie Qingcheng, look at the person in here. He Yu's voice had suddenly become very strained. In the shadowy gloom, the light reflecting off of the solutions fluctuated unpredictably as it glanced over He Yu's face. And as it glanced over He Yu's face, it threw his pallid complexion into sharp relief. That looks like... And that's the end of the chapter. And we are now on page 387 for chapter 86. And we're trapped together. So we came across another homicide and we're trapped together. Fun times. The liquid inside the tank was a murky reddish color, not fully transparent. But Xie Qingcheng could still tell at a glance that this wasn't a silicone dummy. It was a man, or rather, a man's corpse. This corpse was completely submerged inside the specimen tank, his hair drifting silently upward. It was obvious that he'd been dead for a while. As his skin was beginning to swell, and his eyes were wide and vacant. But the Hello Kitty tattooed on his arm was still extremely vivid, gazing innocently yet sinisterly from the swollen skin. It was Hu Yi. How dare they kill off my man? It was fortunate that He Yu and Xie Qingcheng had been the ones to stumble across him. They both had far more experience with the macabre than the average person, so they reacted relatively calmly. If it had been another member of the film crew, they would have been scared out of their minds. All the same, He Yu and Xie Qingcheng's faces turned exceedingly grim. They both stood frozen for a long while before Xie Qingcheng finally reacted, cursing under his breath as he began to look at the other specimen tanks. Examining them, he confirmed that the other glass containers were all filled with silicone dummies. There were no other corpses. Let's hurry and check the other rooms for the writer and production manager, Xie Qingcheng said, his voice frigid. Hu Yi's status was unique in that he was considered a big shot in entertainer circles. A descendant of senior party officials, both of his parents were prominent figures, and his skills were impressive in their own rights. If the murderer could make a move on someone like him, killing 2 little girls would be inconsequential. The man in the container was long dead. No matter how unfortunate the circumstances, there was no use trying to save him now. They had to prioritize the people who might still be alive. He Yu and Xie Qingcheng immediately went to the other rooms, calling out as they searched them one by one. But they found nothing, neither bodies nor living people. The 2 young women seemed to have disappeared into thin air. I can't find them. They're not in the rooms I checked, either. When He Yu and Xie Qingcheng met up again, they turned together toward the last room, the one located in the furthest depths of the studio. This room was very large, and was separated into inner and outer chambers. It was often rented out for filming scenes set in cargo ships or treasure vaults, and it was built to the standards of a large, sealed-off storage space. The door was the electronic type and as thick as 2 adult fists. On entering, the 2 of them realized that the rushing sound they'd heard from outside had gotten even louder. It seemed to be coming from within the inner room. It's water. I'm sure. The book did not say that. I said that, but I'm sure that's what we're hearing. What's that noise? Asked He Yu. Xie Qingcheng shook his head. I don't know, but searching for those 2 is more important. I'll look for them here, and you can check the inner room. He Yu went to the inner room's door. The moment he entered, his expression immediately changed. Water. That rushing noise was water. The water main for the entire film studio had broken, and a steady stream of water was spurting out of the thick pipe. He Yu watched all of this with a stiff expression. The inner room structure was set low, and the area was broad and deep, so for now, the water had yet to fill the room and overflow. But at its current rate, it probably would soon. Xie Qingcheng joined him a short while later. There's no one outside. What about in here? Did you? He trailed off as he likewise caught sight of the wildly gushing water. He Yu's voice was a bit cold. If they were in here, I'm afraid they've already drowned. Xie Qingcheng beamed his phone's flashlight downward. The water was deep but clear, and it was obvious at a glance that the assistant writer and production manager weren't in this inner room. The 2 young women had entered the film studio, but it was as if they'd evaporated into thin air. He Yu and Xie Qingcheng had searched the whole place, and could be certain that the girls weren't here. Snapping back to his senses, He Yu pulled Xie Qingcheng over. Come on, let's get out of here first. It was clear to both men that the situation was grim, and they were about to turn back, when suddenly they heard a low rumbling noise. With a muffled sound, the room's electronic door descended, falling so quickly that it was already nearly closed before they could even move. He Yu's expression changed abruptly. He immediately ran over to the electrical control panel, only to discover that the switch embedded inside the room had been cut off from the power source. The door had been closed using the main control panel outside. Xie Qingcheng, hurry! The door is about to close. But it was already too late. The automatic door crashed shut at an astonishing speed. Boom. With the muffled thud of the door closing, the beam of light from outside was suddenly cut off, and just like that, he and Xie Qingcheng were trapped in the studio. Trapped in a cave together on an island, and now trapped in a studio filling with water. And this time it's not He Yu's fault. Man, I lost my place. They both stood there in silence. Behind them came the gushing sound of an endless stream of water. It echoed like a requiem throughout the sealed chamber, as though ushering them toward death. The blood in their bodies seemed to freeze over at once. He Yu and Xie Qingcheng glanced at each other. Neither had expected to encounter an incident like this at the studio tonight. This was clearly no coincidence. This was a premeditated murder. Water would be an excellent way to destroy evidence left behind at a crime scene, especially a large amount of water that could engulf the entire studio. If He Yu's guess was correct, after the murderer killed Hu Yi and submerged him in the film prop, he'd planned to destroy the water main and flood the site into a swamp, letting it soak in water for the entire night. Both Xie Qingcheng and He Yu were very intelligent. As they stood in the dark, cramped space, the gears in their brains turned furiously. At nearly the exact same moment, they saw the answer in each other's eyes. It was the last staff member that came outside. He was carrying a huge chest. He was probably the culprit. The man whom Xie Qingcheng had asked about the terrible phone signal. The one who had looked unfamiliar because they'd never seen him among the crew before, but could readily answer their question. If their guesses were correct, then that man was the one who had come to clean up the scene of Hu Yi's murder. But after he'd set everything up so that a night of flooding would erase all the evidence and prepared to leave the studio, the murderer hadn't expected that a diligent writer and production manager would bring an advisor to the scene and request for some props to be arranged. There's a scene break, and then it says, half an hour earlier. There's a problem with the setup of the sterile field on the operating table. Tomorrow, the actors are going to perform the scene when they collect and clean the kidney trays here. We asked the medical consultant. Yes, and right here, the recycling bin can't be placed like this. The scalpel needs to be swapped out for a real one during close-ups. Ah, that's right. Where's Liu Laoshi? We can just tell him directly. The production manager chattered at length, afraid that something might still go wrong the next day. After all, the man wearing the baseball cap and mask was entirely unfamiliar to her. She didn't know him, so in all likelihood, he was just some random part-timer under Mr. Liu, the person in charge of the set. Liu Laoshi was feeling unwell, so he went back to rest, said the man in the cap. You can tell me, and I'll make a note of it. Unwell? The production manager was unsatisfied with this response, but there was nothing she could do. She scratched her head. My goodness. She could only continue talking to the man in the baseball cap. Toward the end, when her spiel was almost over, she and the assistant writer prepared to leave. The man in the baseball cap walked them out, repeatedly promising that everything would be rearranged to their specifications before the next day's shoot began. Otherwise, he would shoulder the blame. However, just as the two women were about to step out of the laboratory, the production manager suddenly stopped and slapped himself on the head. Ah, I have such a bad memory. She pulled the assistant writer back into the room, taking no notice of the malevolent gleam that flashed through the eyes of the man in the baseball cap as she passed him by. I almost forgot that these silicone dummies will have close-ups too. So I need to take pictures for the consultant so that he can make sure the pipes and things are in the right places. Hu Laoshi is very strict, so he'll be hopping mad if he finds any problems tomorrow. As she spoke, she took out her phone and started snapping pictures of the dummies' faces in the specimen tanks. Click, click. She was so focused on zooming in, completely engrossed in taking pictures, that she didn't notice the horrifying, translucent image reflected on the glass. Behind them, the man in the baseball cap was lifting a heavy club and raising it higher. The production manager didn't notice a thing as she moved her cell phone to the next specimen tank. She focused, watching the details emerge as the picture appeared on her phone screen, framing the silicone dummy that she wanted to photograph, and then, clang. When the production manager got a good look at the dummy's face, her blood ran cold for a few seconds, and she found herself completely unable to react. Her phone fell from her hands, smashing on the ground. It felt as though her throat and lungs had been seized by a giant, invisible hand, brutally squeezing all the air from her lungs. She could neither inhale nor exhale, her mouth hanging silently open. Her soul seemed to be sucked right out of her, her entire body frozen and numb. It was Hu Yi? It was a real corpse. Her wail had yet to burst out of her throat when she heard a muffled thump. She abruptly turned her head to see that her partner had already fallen to the ground, the back of her head covered in blood. As for the man in the baseball cap, he leered at her sinisterly as he raised the club once more. I think I'm about to read something in... Oh god, what language is this? It's a mantra. So forgive me because I'm not going to be able to pronounce this properly at all. Namo Ratna Trayaya. Namo Arya Avalokitesvaraya. At that very moment, inside a disguised props transport vehicle with knock-off plates, the man in the baseball cap was driving expressionlessly with one hand on the steering wheel, as the rundown radio played the great compassion mantra. The man took off his hat, revealing a wanted criminal's face that had been obscured with makeup. This was a homicidal maniac. The most frightening case that he'd perpetrated to date was a murder on a rainy night at a certain university in Huzhou. Back before criminal investigation technology had been thoroughly developed, this man had murdered a female student while wearing a raincoat. Then, under the cover of his raincoat, he carried her to the school's laboratory and dismembered her, before casting her remains into the laboratory's drainage pipes. Even all these years later, the police had yet to capture him and bring him to justice. Meanwhile, his mental state had grown increasingly twisted. Whenever he killed and fled, he derived pleasure from provoking the authorities, and so he killed again and again, making sure to wear a raincoat and rubber boots at the scene of each of his murders. The first time he killed had just happened to be a rainy day, and he found that his waterproof attire made cleaning up after his crime much more convenient. Later, his mindset changed, and killing people in a raincoat simply became his signature. Right now, inside the cargo bay behind him, lay the raincoat that he'd just removed. It had hidden the bloodstains covering his body, allowing him to successfully escape from right under Xie Qingcheng and He Yu's noses. Aside from the raincoat, there was also a massive props chest, which currently contained 2 unconscious young women, the missing writer and production manager. It's all been taken care of. The man in the baseball cap spoke into the phone in his other hand. Though there were a few unexpected complications. Yeah, people from the production went in. Looked like 2 staff members. I was originally planning on bringing them into the car and dealing with them, but they didn't want to come. 2 tall guys. It wouldn't have been easy for me to take them by force either. It's fine. I ended up shutting them in the inner chamber and breaking the door. I set up a signal jammer over the whole area too, anyway, so they won't have any signal to call the police. There's no way they'll be able to get out. The only thing that anyone will see tomorrow will be their dead bodies. The person on the phone gave him a few more instructions. Got it. The man in the baseball cap glanced subconsciously at the cargo bay through the rearview mirror, even though there was nothing to see. Oh yeah, I have 2 girls here too. They also stumbled in by mistake. They're quite pretty, so I brought them both with me. Even though we only wanted to kill the big fish Hu Yi this time, there's nothing we can do about other little fishies taking the bait. I was planning on killing a little girl. I'd already arranged a pretty eye-catching murder display in the hotel hallway that day, but then the higher-ups said I couldn't just kill whoever I wanted, that I needed to make the kill count with a big one, and they gave me Hu Yi's name. Who would have thought that these little girls would come follow him into the grave? Do you think I should wait till he comes back to take care of them, or... When the man in the baseball cap finished listening to the instructions on the other end, he bared his yellowed teeth in a leer. All right, I got it. I know what I need to do. The truck sped along the road, blanketing the Buddhist chants in plumes of dust. It was ironic that these mantras about mercy could bring a trace of comfort even to fugitive criminals, making them feel like benevolent, enlightened people. Inside the sealed chamber in the studio, the water had already flooded out of the inner room. It was spreading into a glimmering veneer at He Yu and Xie Qingcheng's feet in the outer room. He Yu was trying to break through the signal jammer using his phone, but it was fruitless, as he didn't have a copy of the software that could counteract this type of hardware. No matter how skilled he was, he couldn't do anything without that essential component. He knew that this type of signal jammer was similar to the one he had used on Neverland, back when he wanted to confess to Xie Xue. Its coverage was so comprehensive that even calls to emergency numbers wouldn't go through. The police, fire, and first aid lines were all completely out of reach. Turning to look at Xie Qingcheng, he put down his phone, leaned back against the ice-cold metal door, and silently shook his head. His meaning was self-evident. They truly were trapped in this treacherous studio, with no way to escape. Well, it's a good thing we know that this series has 10 volumes and not 3. That's the end of the chapter. I'm going to take a 10-minute break. Hopefully nothing happens to the internet while I do that. And when we come back, we will be on page 397 for chapter 87, which is called You Were Once All I Could Rely On. Cool. I might take a slightly shorter break since this stream has gotten pushed back a little bit, but we'll see. Just all the things always happen. Things happen all the time. There's always something. So yeah, thank you, Henry. All right, I'll be right back. Hello, I came back. I think I'm back a little bit early. I just wanted to get the show on the road, find out what happens, and since we got pushed back a little bit earlier, I still can't believe we're so close to the end of Volume 3 already. And I'm now wondering if they're actually going to get out of this mess in this volume, or if we're going to wait until Volume 4 to find out how they get out of this. So, we are on page 397 for chapter 87. You were once all I could rely on. They're going to have a heart-to-heart while they think that they're going to drown in this place together. The water level kept rising. The room was very large, so there was still time left for them to escape. However, the lock on the door had been destroyed, and their signal was being jammed. They had no way of opening the door or calling for help. Yu and Xie Qingcheng tried everything they could, but it quickly became clear that they truly had no avenue of escape. The atmosphere in the studio grew extremely grave. The water had already risen to their ankles. The winter was so chilly, and the deathly cold was like a slippery snake flicking its tongue as it slithered up their legs, its icy bite stabbing into their bones. Yu suddenly picked up a spade from the corner and shoved it against the metal door. "Stop wasting your energy," said Xie Qingcheng. "It's impossible to get this kind of door open with brute force." Yu made no response. After scraping a few starkly